And so we have our moment of time which has come, which is our live interview with our life coach, Lee Foulis, and we have her on the lines with us this very moment right now. Good morning, Lee. Do you want to say hello to the listeners?
I do indeed. Good morning, Ryan, and good morning to the South Coast listeners.
Awesome. Glad to have you with us on the lines, Lee. So, guys, before we continue, just a quick bio about Lee Foulis, who was born in Johannesburg and moved to East London at the age of 30, where she lived for some 23 years before moving to KZN. She has a son by the name of Alan, who is a marine biologist and lives in Cape Town. As a young woman, she worked in the commercial insurance industry. However, she has always had a profound interest in how people's lives turn into the way they do. Is it luck, fate, or do we actually shape our lives with the daily choices we make, and what is behind these choices? Thus, it was in East London that she enrolled at Rhodes University and completed her Bachelor of Social Science degree and an honors degree in psychology. Subsequent to completing her studies, she started a practice as a life coach. She was also invited to work for the NBL, which is also known as National Business Initiative, as a mentor to executive manage in the provincial government. The areas she covered included, but were not limited to, strategic planning, team building, time management, and decision making. Working as a life coach is a huge responsibility to be let into a person's life and trusted to the degree that I am is never taken for granted, and it is a humbling and huge privilege. And that was a basic bio with Lee Foulis for the moment. So, Lee, with some questions that we have for this very moment, based on background and philosophy. So, what initially drew you to life coaching?
Okay, Doug, so you're breaking away a bit, but if I heard correctly, what initially drew me to life coaching.
Yes.
So yes, as I said, I have for as long as I can remember, certainly my adult life, been interested in why life shows up the way it does. Are some people just luckier than others? Is it fate? Or do we actually play a huge part in creating our lives? So with this curiosity that just grew, it put me firmly on the path of life coaching and personal discovery and growth. So in a nutshell, that's where it started.
Awesome stuff, Lee. And so, what is your personal philosophy on life coaching, and what do you believe is the key to achieving personal goals and fulfillment?
Personal philosophy, gosh, I would say I'm never done. We as human beings are never done. So to be open to new ideas, to be open to learning, and to put that knowledge into action. I read somewhere that knowing the truth is not enough, because knowing the truth without living it is the same as not knowing it. So yes, when we learn and we grow and then put it into practice, for me that is a philosophy of life and life coaching. As I say, we are never done. And Mark Twain, I think it was, said, the man who does not read has no advantage over the man who cannot read.
True.
So it really is, for me, a life philosophy, not a coaching philosophy, is to learn and to live that knowledge and adjust it as we go along. And as far as personal goals, sorry, I think that was the second part of your question, is that firstly, when we choose goals, they must be exciting. It must be your parents' goals, or your partner's goals, or somebody else's goals. They must be your goals,
Yes.
and they must be exciting. Discover what floats your boat, as they say, and then set those goals in motion. Otherwise, if I say to you, I'm going to run a marathon, but I don't really want to do it and I hate running, it's a goal, but it's going to be a big ask. So first and foremost, make those goals exciting, make them your goals, and make them achievable. So goals must stretch you
Yes.
and excite you, but they mustn't be unrealistic, because then that becomes something that knocks you down rather than grows you as a person. And lastly, something that I learned at a very young age from my father was self-discipline. And I think if you cannot commit to something as important as your personal growth and development,
Yes.
then you need to make peace with the fact that your life is probably never going to improve. Because that self-discipline to work on yourself, to do what it takes to read, to study, to grow, to experience, is very important in everything we achieve in life, whether it's to get fit or to get another qualification or to work on a new skill you want to, if it's riding the bicycle or playing the piano or becoming a better communicator. It takes discipline and commitment.
That's true. Exactly. I would also agree with you on that as well, Lee. And so,
Yeah.
some questions based on approach and techniques. So, how do you ensure your coaching methods are culturally sensitive and inclusive?
Very important question. You know, we live in this beautiful country of ours. It is so diverse. It is so rich.
Yes.
In different cultures, different religions, different approaches to life. Gosh, if I jump around a bit, you just bear with me. But it's such a wonderful thing because it's being open to all of it. For starters, no judging.
Yes.
You cannot superimpose your values, religion, or anything onto someone else. So being open is definitely important. And then I use a theoretical perspective that's called social constructionism. And what social constructionism does at its heart is saying we make sense of a world within the way our society is constructed. So my place in history, my religion, the language I use, the customs I have in my family or in my neighborhood, all of those things inform me and inform the way I process things and the way I function in the world. So for me as a coach, I have to be sensitive to that.
Exactly.
I have to be able to let my client be who he or she is within that framework of cultural, religious, social norms. And what I have found wonderful when I've had clients that perhaps have an approach that I'm not familiar with, I ask, and they are so happy to share and so happy to enlighten me. So I would say is to be open, to not ever judge, not ever superimpose my values, and then to ask, be curious.
Great stuff, Lee. Another question this moment: how do you handle situations where clients experience significant challenges or setbacks?
Yeah, that would of course depend on the nature of the setback. If someone has had a setback at work, it's very different perhaps from someone who suffered a personal loss or death. But firstly, I would handle it with lots of empathy. Mm-hmm. That is always necessary, to be empathetic, not sympathetic, but empathetic to your client. And then to have a process in which we plan a way forward. Again, it would depend on what the setback was. And to have resilience built into that, because we learn to become resilient from handling difficult situations well. And that only comes with experience. So really it would, empathy, a plan, building resilience, acquiring a specific skill or knowledge, again, depending on what the setback was. And healthy, my client needs to have and develop a healthy confidence and self-worth. That is so important, because if we're not confident Now, I just want to add in there that confidence is situation specific.
Yes.
I'm maybe very confident doing what I do, but I'm not confident in anything that involves a ball. So it's situation specific. Whereas self-worth is pervasive. Self-worth is how I see myself in comparison to others or to someone else. And that if I see myself as less than or not as good as, then that is going to affect how I make sense of the world and how I process things and how a step back is going to affect me. So broadly speaking, if my client has a healthy self-worth and confidence, it makes handling a setback easier. If not, then we have to work on those foundation things before we can jump into something else. Because giving a client the knowledge to do something, but they haven't got the confidence and self-worth is going to be a bit defeatist. I hope that answers the question.
Most definitely did. And so, with some questions based on client experience and impact, how do you measure the success of your coaching interventions?
Well, firstly, the sparkle in my client's eyes. When it's been a successful coaching experience, they walk taller. They are more confident. They feel and are confident that they could face anything life throws at them. So really, and then of course, clients more often than not will thank you. They are appreciative for the intervention, for the way you've changed and impacted their lives. So and there are obviously more tangible things where a client has had an issue at work with, let's say, time management or delegation. Those are areas I'm also working, where they then have greatest measurable, quantifiable successes in those areas.
That's great stuff, Lee. In fact, I've just received a message from one of our listeners this very moment, and this is from Susan, all the way from Cape Town, who says, "Good morning, this is Susan, all the way from Cape Town. Thank you for the show this morning, and thank you very much to Lee for the information shared." She has two questions this current moment, but due to time's sake, we may have to try and do at least one for the moment. And so one of our questions is, if a person lacks self-confidence, for example, in taking important life decisions, what can the person do to develop such self-confidence?
Well, if it's a case of developing, Susan, to developing self-confidence with life decisions, I think it would be useful to ask yourself, in which area of your life, is it relationships, personal relationships, or is it something work-related? Because they would have slightly different approaches. But look where you have confidence and look what got you that confidence in those areas and try and replicate them. But if you want to drop me a WhatsApp, we can perhaps have a chat about this. But confidence really is a case of identifying your strengths and weaknesses, and then where your weaknesses are, get the necessary knowledge, skills and education, be that coaching or be that a qualification, so that you can become more confident. But decision making also is a process. I could almost call it a recipe. There is a recipe for making good decisions, which I would be happy to share with you if you drop me a WhatsApp, and we can, I can let you have that. I don't want to waste too much time going into that. But certainly, as I say, start with what are your strengths and weaknesses, and let's see which weaknesses you need to work on and what the best approach would be to that. Does that answer the question? I hope so, Susan. And thank you for the question.
That's awesome. Thank you, Lee, for that. And thank you, Susan, for that question. And hopefully it helps you. And so, with that being in mind, back to some questions that I have this very moment based on client experience and impact. Okay, so what resources do you recommend to clients for further support and development?
Read. read wisely, read widely. I had a professor at university, at Rhodes University, who said, be a critical consumer of knowledge. There's such a lot of good material out there, but there's also a lot of nonsense. So just because it's written down or it's on YouTube or TikTok does not make it true, accurate, or useful. So be a critical consumer of knowledge, and you can only become a critical consumer if you read widely. I would also say read well-recognized authors that are respected in their field. And then also what's important to me, as a life coach in particular, is to work on yourself with the knowledge you gain, because life changes from the inside out, not the outside in. If you're hoping for life to change from the outside in, it's like putting lipstick on the mirror. You look in the mirror and put the lipstick on the mirror and walk away and nothing has changed. And if you're waiting for something or someone outside of you to change, it's conditional living. And that is not empowering. If I can only be happy and confident if my husband compliments me or is nice to me, then I'm forever waiting for his approval, for want of a better word. And that is conditional living. Whereas if I work on myself, become confident, become self-assured, assured of my ability and my skills and knowledge, then I am not dependent on anyone else for their approval. Their approval is a bonus, but it's not necessary for my well-being and happiness. So read widely, be a critical consumer of knowledge, work on yourself, because that is really what's empowering and what changes life.
That's great stuff, Lee, I must say. And so because of time at this very moment, as we are restricted due to load shedding shortly, so I do have at least one more question for this moment. What advice would you give to someone considering becoming a life coach?
Gosh, yes, the way my life played out was, in hindsight, really great, because, I worked the first 15 years of my life in Johannesburg, in the corporate world, in commercial and industrial insurance. And it's only when moving to East London that I decided to take this passion of mine further and enroll at Rhodes and did my undergrad and my postgrad, my honours in psychology. So it afforded me the benefit of having practical knowledge of the workplace, of people, of being part of an organization, of being part of a team, and then being able to use that in my coaching practice. Because I somehow feel that if a young person goes from a trip to university and then hangs up their shingle to become a life coach, they may lack the balance that life experience gives you. As important as theoretical knowledge is, and it's crucial, life is not black and white. There's a lot of grey. So my advice would be, yes, get the qualifications, but then perhaps become part of an organization first before you go and do your lone thing, because most of us life coaches work for ourselves, by ourselves. Very few, or I'm not saying there are big of a life coaching business where we're all in the same office or office space. So if you've never experienced what it's like to be part of a company in a bigger organization or a bigger team, then perhaps you'll lose out on some of the nuances of that. So yes, get the qualifications that are crucial. You need the theoretical backing, but also go and get some experience so you can bring a well-rounded approach to your life coaching practice.
That's really awesome stuff, Lee. And as I was saying, due to time and load shedding anytime in this few minutes left, we will have to shorten our time. But however, I am thinking that we should have another session soon, I guess, and also to give our listeners a chance to communicate with us with their questions and stuff. But in the meantime, for those of you who want to get in contact, including Susan from Cape Town, if you want to get in contact with Lee, the number, which is 082-330-2439. That's 082-330-2439. 39, and you can get in contact with her on that number. Also, you can send us your questions also on our WhatsApp number, which is 067 789 5289. That's 067 789 5289, which is our radio number as well. So we will surely have Lee with us on another interview. Surely, if you guys have any questions that you want to ask, which you can send to us on the radio number, which we will also address to Lee, and we will have them answered live on our next interview, which will also let you know in advance to tune in as well. So thank you once again, Lee, for being with us on South Coast Radio. It's really an honor and privilege having you out here with us.
Thank you so much, Ryan, and thank you to all your listeners. The privilege and the pleasure and the honor is absolutely mine, and I look forward to receiving your listeners' questions, and we'll address them as we go along. Thank you so much, and have the most wonderful day.
Awesome, and a wonderful day to you as well, Lee, and enjoy. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, that was Lee with us live on the lines. And so, due to time's sake, we are going to head into at least one more song coming up right now.
The radio station you can't live without. This is your radio.
This is South Coast Radio.